Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Thrive Live. Today, I'm going to bring in Ray and Jason so that they can talk to you a little bit about our guests. We've got some incredible subjects today. They're really important to the times at hand. So let's listen to Ray tell us a little bit more about our guest. Who do we have, Ray?
Yeah. Hi, Beth. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Good morning from Austin, Texas.
Great.
Where are you, Ray?
I am in beautiful Denver, Colorado.
Oh, so jealous. I'm still in Katy, Texas. I don't world travel like you guys, so I'm stuck. I'm chained to the desk.
Well, first of all, thank you, Beth, for helping us with this. And today we've got Keith Michell. Keith is somebody that I worked with at Cognizant Technology Solutions, and I really think that he is one of the experts in the area of diversity, inclusion, corporate compliance. He's just an outstanding individual, and today we're going to be talking about diversity, inclusion, and belonging programs. Keith is the founder of Holistic People Analytics. It's a human capital consulting specializing in developing HR risk management strategies. Keith's got extensive experience in the area of diversity and inclusion, HR compliance, M&A support, risk management, workforce analytics, talent acquisition, and HR technology. During his career, he's worked for major corporations across 7 different industries. He has managed over 1,000 employees, employee misconduct, and ethic investigations, and he's currently focused on investigating and mitigating employee cybersecurity risks and insider threats. Keith holds a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology and a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology, and he's currently completing his thesis research for a second master's degree in systems security at Northwestern University.
After
We're
reading
really,
that, I feel really insecure.
yeah, I tell you, he's got a great background, and we're really, really happy that he's found some time to join us on Thrive Live.
All right, well, let's bring him in studio. Hi, Keith. How are you?
You're doing fine. How are you?
I'm
Hi,
great.
Keith.
You have to tell us where you are.
Hello, team. I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan on a beautiful sunny morning.
Great.
So, Keith, thanks so much for being on, and we're talking about a really important topic at this time, which is diversity, inclusion, and belonging. So, one of the questions that we wanted to start off and ask you about is what's really happening right now with diversity, inclusion, and belonging programs for corporations? What are you seeing in the marketplace right now?
Well, I think what I'm seeing right now is that more leadership roles are being created since the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement started. I think for many companies, the roles are being filled probably for the first time. And one of the things that this tells me is that many companies are kind of behind the curve in dealing with these type of workplace issues. In addition, I'm seeing more conversation and more attention being paid to economic equity. Again, those are very important topics.
I read a couple of articles recently where it said that there was a concern that some of the enthusiasm, or maybe that's not the right word, or the move forward on getting these programs in place has died down a little bit. Would you agree with that, or where do you think we are in terms of companies continuing to move forward and taking this seriously and doing what they ethically and morally should do?
Well, I think what companies should be doing is there's always going to be another incident when we least expect it. So I think to support their employees, their customer base, and their communities, companies really need to demonstrate empathy toward their employees and their employees' experiences, particularly in light of you don't know how this social trauma is going to impact your employees. Again, we see incidents of police brutality and acts of violence during protests. All of our employees and customers need to feel safe in our work environment and our facilities. So we need to always keep that in mind. Again, coming from a risk management standpoint, we're always looking into the future. How can we mitigate the next incident that happens. I think the support for and the opposition to Black Lives Matters is causing some tension within the work environment. And I think all organizations need to have a plan in place for how to respond to those type of social unrest. And this is particularly important should there be an incident that impacts their own employees. The two examples that comes to my mind is the shooting of a Black man at a Wendy's in Atlanta, and the targeting of Hispanics at a Walmart in El Paso. Can you imagine the impact that had on the employees that were working for that company, for those companies? I think an organization's workforce really needs to know that their company and their leaders are going to be there for them and will be empathetic to their concerns.
I mean, that's an excellent point.
That's a great point. Yeah, and we're strong believers of empathetic leadership. Another question for you is, how do organizations get started on the road to focusing on diversity, inclusion, and belonging programs? I mean, what should organizations be doing?
I think I would recommend that organizations begin their initiatives by conducting employee surveys and focus groups in order to identify the cultural issues and barriers that may have a negative impact on employee attitudes, performance, and feelings of alienation from the organization. Some may not think employees would feel that way, but they would be surprised at the results of their surveys and focus groups. I think the content and the context of these survey questions and discussions are very important. As we all know, the topics of race, equity, and bias related to the organization's culture are very sensitive subjects. I think if the organization wants honest input from their employees, they will need to be very transparent in how they plan to act upon the results. And I think they should be prepared to answer the question, what is your D&I roadmap? Where are you going with this? What's the benefit for your employees?
If you're an organization and you've never had a diversity, inclusion, and belonging program, and you're looking at your organization and realizing you need to do this, how do you get started? What are your recommendations for how a company begins this process?
I think a couple of things. One, as I mentioned, doing employee surveys and focus groups, really understanding the cultural environment within the company. If you don't know that, you don't know where you are, and you don't know where you need to go. I think there's times when companies make good initial starts, but then they may have missteps. One example would be a recent statement by a CEO. I would label this, "Don't be this guy." The CEO of Wells Fargo made a quote that was widely publicized.
Yes.
He said his statement was, "While it might sound like an excuse, the unfortunate reality is that there is a very limited pool of Black talent to recruit from." And I would ask, what impact do you think that the CEO's statement had on a company's brand, its culture, and particularly their Black employees' sense of belonging? And that's where you can see both. If you do good things, if you're a champion, you're going to say the right things. But if you're not there yet, you could make some missteps that really have a negative impact on your employees. I think the organizations also need to realize that social media is a powerful communication tool, and the CEO's statement has been widely circulated and widely criticized. And it also is a gauge for when a leader is that far out of touch. It says a lot about the culture of the company.
Yeah, Wells Fargo seems to be making all of the wrong moves. There was a movie called All the Right Moves. Their movie should be All the Wrong Moves. So it makes you wonder about their overall culture. They just can't seem to get it right. So
yeah, and actually, sometimes it only takes one leader to make a misstep to soil the reputation of a company.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so true, so true. Any personal recommendations, Keith, on kind of as a professional? How to develop yourself, how to think about diversity and inclusion programs and other things from an HR profession perspective on development.
That's a good question. I get that question a lot as well. I think my recommendations for self-development begins with continuous learning. I can use myself as an example. I'm always learning. Again, I'm working on my thesis for my second master's because I want to be challenged intellectually to continue to move forward as a professional. I think you should always focus on strengthening your current skills, but also broadening your skill sets in looking at the jobs of the future. I would also suggest taking on side gigs and maybe volunteering for some projects within your company or for nonprofits. I think those are important to broaden your skill sets. I think networking and finding a mentor are very important for self-development as well. I think it's valuable to get an external view of both your strengths and weaknesses, your interpersonal skills, and your potential. It kind of levels you, I think.
Great.
Absolutely. Keith, what aspects of company culture can help or hinder employees' feeling of belonging after the recent social unrest and the incidents of police excessive force?
I think it's important that organizations' leaders drive a culture that demonstrates empathy and responsiveness to their employees who may be experiencing some of the trauma from the social incidents. You don't know how people and your employees are being impacted, so you should be empathetic to finding out what's going on in your environment. I think company programs such as employee assistance programs should always be on the alert and anticipate that their help or guidance might be needed. Again, I think it's critical that these type of services have a diverse team available as well in order to address the diverse employee population.
Great. Now, if you're an employee, should you approach your employer with any issues related to social unrest and how it's impacting them, their job performance or work-life balance, or any other issues that they may be having at work?
Definitely. I would encourage any employee that has concerns about the recent events or how they might be impacted to talk to their manager or talk to their HR representative about their concerns. I think an organization that is truly has an environment of belonging would not only encourage the employees to do this, but a level of openness is already existing within the company's culture that makes it easy for employees to come forward and talk about their concerns.
Now, should companies have just different ways that employees can communicate that? I mean, they've got an EAP program or maybe a kind of a private line, or kind of a hotline that they can bring issues to if they don't feel comfortable going to their leader. What other programs or should companies be looking at and thinking about?
That's a good point because there are various avenues that most companies have. Again, EAP is one that an employee can go there confidentially. There's employee relations professionals they can talk to. Again, if they're not comfortable talking to their direct manager, they can go one step up to talk to their director or the person above their manager. Again, they can also talk to other employees who may reach out to the appropriate people. But most companies will have a hotline for the sensitive topics or issues that employees want to deal with.
Keith, can you explain how diversity, inclusion, and belonging programs are a competitive advantage for employers and organizations?
Yeah, I think they're a competitive advantage because they enhance the organization's culture and the pipeline of critical talent. The research has already shown that D&I initiatives have a positive impact on an organization's productivity and profitability. I think the culture that is established and enhanced by D&I initiatives broadens the organization's recruitment efforts and increases the organization's ability to retain top talent. I think that when employees feel that they are wanted and they feel that they belong and have a purpose in an organization, they're going to want to stay. And this is both minority and non-minorities and male and females. That's just part of our human nature. If we feel wanted, we feel that we have a purpose, we're going to want to contribute to the organization.
Great. That's great. With so much happening from a race relations perspective in the U.S., how do you recommend that we have good, meaningful conversations with each other about race relations and what's happening in the U.S.?
That's a good question, I think, and it's a tough one too. But I think we have meaningful conversations by being transparent about our biases and about our lack of personal exposure to people of other races. I would phrase this: we need to acknowledge that we don't know what we don't know, particularly about other people. I think many of our biases and stereotypes of other races are driven by the social media and mass media, and not from our own personal experience to other individuals. I think one example I would use is if your only exposure to African Americans is what you see on the news or on hip hop videos, you will have very little understanding and a limited sense of the richness and diversity of the Black culture. And that will apply to other cultures as well. We need to reach out more and gain a better understanding. I think if we do this, we will, through more exposure to other cultures, we'll find that we have more in common than we don't. I think if we can start having meaningful conversations by talking about the things that we have in common and about our common experiences, I think that would be a good start.
Have you seen any corporations or have you seen any best practices on how to do that well inside an organization?
I think it's starting. I think Starbucks with their missteps are making strides in that area. So Dexo as well is one that has been really at the forefront of diversity and inclusion for many years.
Yeah, and around that, I think that those conversations are tough to have. Have you seen any? There's other ways to learn about a culture or how somebody is feeling about the situation that we're in. What are your thoughts about looking at other YouTubes and other podcasts and things of that nature to gain a better understanding?
I think those are very good avenues, because what I'm seeing in a wide variety of topics, a lot of good content on YouTube and other media outlets as well. I think it's important not only as an organization, but as an individual to take the initiative to learn more about other cultures. Again, there's a lot of good content out there in YouTube. LinkedIn has a very good video training as well. But I think it's up to both the company and the individual to have the desire to learn more about others.
Great.
Any closing thoughts on diversity, inclusion, and belonging programs? What corporations need to do, best practices, anything that you would like folks who are listening to this webcast to take away that you haven't mentioned yet?
I think my final thoughts would be for the company leadership. I think it's critical that leaders step up and take the initiative and be champions of a culture of diversity, inclusion, and belonging. The initiative can't be an HR program. I think that's one of the downfalls of some of the earlier D&I programs. HR led them. HR was always at the forefront, but it should be your company's top leadership, and I think it must be just as important as the company's financial goals. That's how important it should be to every leader. I think if you have just going back to one of our earlier discussion, if you have just one leader in your company that is not willing to take the initiative and not willing to be the champion of having a D&I culture, they will be a hindrance to your company's goals. I think I would ask every leader to ask themselves, how would you deal with someone in leadership who was not willing to contribute to or champion the achievement of your company financial goals? So the same question should be asked of those who are not willing to champion your diversity, inclusion, belonging goals. Again, my final thought, leaders must be willing to deal with the hard stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point you just made, that, as a leader, the financial goals and the DIBS goals need to be considered of equal importance. And I really like that. That's a great point that you make.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an exceptional point. And diversity, makes us all stronger. Ray and I came from Cisco Systems in the Bay Area, where we had an incredibly diverse group of employees that worked together and, created, an incredibly dynamic company in terms of all the diversity that we had across Cisco. So, we've seen how important it is and how well it works and how it brings out the best in everyone. So I think your comments are really, well spoken and really taken to heart. Okay. Now everybody needs to know, how do we get a hold of you? How do we find you? If they want to work with you, they want to bring you into their organization, how does that work? How do we do that?
They can contact me through LinkedIn. My profile's out there with my background experience and my contact information. Keith Michell.
Okay. If you guys also want to get a hold of Keith, you can email us at thrivehrconsulting.com, and we will get Keith in contact with you to bring him into your organization and help you out with your DIBS program. And so we're super excited that you came on today, Keith.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Keith. Really appreciate your time, and this is such an important topic, that we're faced with on a day-to-day basis. So awesome information.
And can we bring you back for maybe an update in 90 days out and just talk a little bit more about this? Because I think this is not a one-time thing. We need to have an ongoing dialogue. So we'd love to bring you back and talk about what we're seeing, even 3 months from now.
I agree. Anytime.
All right. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you very much, Keith. Appreciate it.
Enjoy the leaves turning in Ann Arbor. It's beautiful this time of year.
All right.
Yes, it is.
All right. Bye.
All right, Keith. Bye-bye.